Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Richard Heaton-Watson, your chair for this afternoon, and it's my pleasure to welcome Jeremy Lewis, who's headmaster of ACS Egham, one of the premier IB schools, and we look forward to hearing what he has to tell us. Jeremy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me there at the back? I know I'm competing with a number of other stands, and I think a creche or a child centre there at the back, so that's quite a challenge. I'd like to start with an apology. I've always been warned that you should never ever start a speech with an apology, but I will. If I look slightly unshaven, and you may not even notice that at the back, those of you who have red hair and try and grow a beard will know what I mean, but it's November. It's the month of November, and it's a time in the year when men are encouraged to grow a moustache in recognition of the fact that there are male health issues, including prostate cancer. So it's a way of raising awareness. That's not why I'm here today, but if I look somewhat unshaven and disheveled, and you might have thought I just got out of bed, I haven't, but I just wanted to share that with you. I also want to clarify that I'm going to be talking about the International Baccalaureate, but I'm not talking on behalf of the IB or the International Baccalaureate. I don't work for them. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm merely giving you a perspective from an international school and that has been delivering the International Baccalaureate for many years. I'm also not really here to promote ACS, but if you could just go to the first slide, please. Thank you. The next one, thanks. So I'm not here to promote my school either, but I do want to say a little bit about ACS in a minute. I also think it's useful to know that the person who's speaking to you today has got a lot of experience of the International Baccalaureate. I started teaching a long time ago on the Isle of Wight in England, in 1980 in fact, and it's no reflection on the Isle of Wight, but I decided after a few years that I really wanted to go and work in an international school. So from 1983 to 2010, in fact, I was working overseas in international schools that were delivering the International Baccalaureate Diploma program. And that's 5 international schools in Kuwait, Japan, Hungary, Vietnam, and Turkey. I think I may have forgotten one, but anyway. So I came back to live in England last year, where I'm now head of school at ACS Egham International School. A bit about ACS, as you can see from the slide behind me, has a huge amount of experience in terms of teaching the IB or the International Baccalaureate. And we are one of only 4 IB World schools accredited to teach all 3 of the IB programs. And I'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. ACS Egham is one of 4 ACS schools. There are 3 in the UK. There's one in Cobham, ACS Hillingdon, and ACS Egham. And we've just opened a 4th school in Doha, in Qatar. And one of the features of our schools is that we have many of our teachers who are experienced as trainers and examiners and workshop leaders within the IB. So I thought that context was useful for you to have. Thanks. Oh, you're ahead of me. So a little bit about the IB itself, and I'm not here to talk about anything really other than the diploma program, but I thought it might be useful for you to know that there are 3 programs within the International Baccalaureate, and they are the primary years program, which is for students aged 3 to 12, the middle years program for students aged 11 to 16, and the diploma program, which will be my focus this afternoon, which was students for 16 to 19. A number of schools offer one or more of these programs, but we're one of the very few in the UK to offer all 3. So students at our school get the International Baccalaureate experience from 3 years upwards, and if they stay in the school for the whole time, they can leave with a diploma when they're 18. So the IB diploma itself. Okay. I'm not going to say a huge amount about the structure of the program, because I'm assuming quite a lot of you will probably know a fair amount about it anyway. But it's a program that I would say is rigorous in design and in delivery. It's a pre-university program, the IB Diploma, and there are 6 subject groups and students, and this is changing. This is as of now in 2011, but the structure is undergoing change. But as it stands at the moment, every student who is a diploma student has to choose one subject from each of the groups. They have to have their first language, a foreign language, a humanities, a science, a maths, and then they can choose from one other subject. They can take an additional humanities or an additional language or additional arts. Essentially, that's the program. At the core or at the heart of the program are 3 areas that are often misunderstood and often not discussed in as much detail as they deserve. But there are three core elements. One is called the theory of knowledge, which some of you may recognize as epistemology, but essentially what it does is it teaches students how to think for themselves and how to make cross-disciplinary links between all their subject areas. So they become real critical thinkers and very analytical. Another core component is something called community, action, and service. Every IB diploma student is required to have a balance over the 2-year program of something creative, it could be drama, it could be art, something athletic or something active. Sometimes schools define it as something that makes you sweat. It does not have to be a sport, but something active. And then community service, service to others, something altruistic. So those three are community, action, and service are fundamental aspects of the program. And then finally, something called the extended essay, which is a 4,000-word research project which students normally take about 8 months to 10 months to complete. It depends on the school. And invariably, it's supposed to be, anyway, in a subject of their choice and a subject that they're interested in. So effectively, that's the overall structure of the program. So the IB diploma itself. Often it's useful to get a sense of how large the program is and what its impact is. The figures here are quite interesting. 111,000 students sat the IB diploma in the summer of 2011. In 3 regions across the UK, US, and Europe, it's continuing to grow very fast. And its largest growth area is in North America. So I think that's important to know. So often the International Baccalaureate program, which is relatively new, is considered to be a very UK-based or very Eurocentric program, but that's not the case. So the reason that I'm really here today is to outline for you some research that ACS schools have been conducting over the last 6 years. And what they've been very interested in is to ascertain or establish the degree to which universities in the UK recognize the value of an IB diploma and actively seek out IB diploma students. And universities in the UK and beyond, in fact. So starting with this first slide, and there's nothing more tedious, I know, than reading slides to an audience. But I'm just going to highlight a few things. We surveyed UK admissions officers across a range of different universities, from the Oxford and Cambridge to Birmingham to Aston to Reading to Bucks University. So we got a strong sense across a range of different universities in terms of what their opinion was and what they knew about the IB and what they considered to be its important features. We also extended this research to 20 universities in the US and 31 European universities as well. So this was a relatively large sample that gave us the confidence to make fairly important judgments and statements as to the credibility and the value to which we believe the IB is seen in the eyes of other universities. So, and at this point I will need to put my glasses on. So the components, there are various components of the IB diploma, which is the next slide, thank you. And these are important to note. These are some of the components of the IB diploma that universities in the UK consider to be of value and important. I'll start with the first one, which was this idea I talked about, which was creativity, action, and service. Universities in the UK recognize how important this is, and this is a fundamental part of the IB diploma. They also recognize the importance of continuing with a second language. I'm not here, trust me, to bash the A-level system. That's not what I'm here for at all. But within the IB diploma program, you have to continue with a foreign language, and in some cases you've got students doing 3 languages. And this is very appealing to many universities and employers. The theory of knowledge course, which I talked about as a sort of epistemology, critical thinking, is something that makes universities recognize that our students that go to universities with the International Baccalaureate diploma are very well versed in thinking for themselves and asking critical questions. The fact that they study a broad range of subjects, they do an extended essay, they continue as an IB diploma student, you have to continue with maths, English and science, unlike the A-levels, for example, where you can opt out of some of those subjects. And you also, the very last point here, is you have to do 3 subjects at higher level. So you do 6 subjects, 3 at standard and 3 at higher level. Thank you. So then we looked at the value of the different components in the eyes of different universities around the world. We looked at the UK, US, and Europe. And what you can see there is that the ranking, if you like, of what they consider to be aspects of the IB diploma that were valuable and something that they would be attracted to as admissions officers. And again, I'm not going to probably read a few of these points because I think they're very important. The universities like the spread and the breadth. They like the fact that students have 3 higher level subjects, that they continue to study maths and science, that they have a second language, etc. So the features of the IB diploma that I was defining to you before are something or things that universities are impressed by, and I think that's worth you knowing. So universities recognize the value. Now, if you're watching the media as often as I think most of us do when we're in education, either as educators or parents or prospective parents, we want to know what our competing university systems are, or what our competing exam systems are. And one thing that the media has focused on considerably recently is grade inflation within the A-level system. And there would be some people who argue that the fact that there's such intense grade inflation within A-level somehow minimizes its value and undermines its importance. And I thought an interesting statistic was this. The IB diploma student can achieve a maximum of 45 points within the IB diploma, and less than 1% of students worldwide actually achieve 45 points. At the same time, A-level grades have increased over the last 20-25 years. So there is a sense that it's much, much more difficult to excel within the IB diploma than it is at A-level. Now, I'm not going to make any further claim than that, but I think it's something to be aware of, that the IB diploma is a rigorous program which does not lend itself and does not promote grade inflation. Okay, thank you. This slide represents the fact that universities are increasingly seeing, and this is in the US, are increasingly seeing students apply with the IB diploma. Now, when I started with the IB program way back in the early 80s, it was a fairly difficult program to promote and to market because it was relatively new. You're talking about a program that really started in the middle 60s. And it was quite hard to promote at that point. But increasingly, and in North America and in the UK, there's a greater recognition of the program and a much greater understanding of its value. We have at our school a university college or counseling program, and universities from around the world actively seek us out because they know that we have IB diploma students and they recognize the value of that program and of those students. So, we also, in the research that we conducted, asked a series of questions to university admissions officers in terms of which of these qualities do you consider to be the most valuable in students who are applying to university. And I am going to just read down this list. It's the ability to take risks, business skills, creativity, open-mindedness, the ability to cope with pressure, good communication skills, good self-management skills, detailed subject knowledge, and the ability to independently inquire. All of which I would argue are the cornerstones or the foundations of the IB diploma program. So there's a strong correlation between what university officers are looking for, what admissions officers are looking for, and what the IB diploma program offers. Now, you'll notice from that it does vary slightly from region to region as to what they consider to be more important or less important. But generally speaking, university admissions officers around the world recognize that what the IB diploma has to offer is very much of appeal or appealing to them. So, within the UK, this is now talking to UK admissions officers and asking them, compared to your own exam system, i.e. probably compared to the A-levels, how does the IB compare? And what you will notice there is that as far as the admissions officers are concerned in the UK, the IB diploma student outscores the A-level student in all but probably one area, which I think is very interesting. The area where they seem to match the A-level student to the IB student is the ability to cope with pressure, debatable. Where they claim that the A-level student may be stronger is in detailed subject knowledge. The one criticism that is often leveled at the IB, which I think is unfair, is that the breadth you get because you're studying 6 subjects may count against you being able to specialize when you do 3 A-levels. But I'm not convinced by that, because I think the higher level subject is very demanding and equally as demanding as an A-level. But you do get the breadth. So that's what the UK universities are saying. In the EU, it looks slightly different. And at this point, you'll notice that universities in the EU are confident that the IB diploma program offers a more challenging and a more exciting program than their own system. You could, of course, say that's an awful indictment on their own system and isn't necessarily praise or support for the diploma, but nevertheless, I think those are quite telling statistics. Within the US, this is what it looks like. And once again, a rather similar picture, where the IB diploma program is considered, or the IB diploma student is considered a far better candidate than those that are coming out of the US system with a US qualification from school. And that's not meant as a criticism of the EU school or US school. It's simply restating the fact that the IB diploma is considered excellent preparation for university. And I would say university and beyond as well. We then asked what, within the UK system, what qualities or what they were looking for in their students as well. So what they're asking for is something that they stress enormously is the evidence of passion for a chosen course of subject, evidence of a positive attitude, etc. Now, I'm not going to claim that every IB diploma student is enormously passionate about their studies. That would be a complete misrepresentation, or that they're amazingly well-rounded, or that they all write particularly well. But the IB diploma does produce a very special kind of student. And those of you who are in IB schools where you offer the PYP, the MYP, and the diploma program, the three programs, I think you will recognize that the students who graduate from these schools are very special and do stand out. Thank you. In the US and the EU, these are some important ideas as well. These are some of the qualities that they consider to be very important in students. And a lot of the attributes that they're phrased or that they're defining here as important are attributes that a good IB diploma student would leave their schools with as well. Thank you. Okay? Thanks. Okay. Now, I wanted to leave time for questions, and I think I've more than achieved that. The general sense that I get about the IB within the UK is an important one, I think, to share with you. That there are an increasing number of British families considering the IB diploma as an alternative. Just come back one. As an alternative to the A-level system. Schools within the International Baccalaureate program actively recruit teachers who have experience delivering the program. Within the IB world itself, ACS, the school that I'm here to represent, has a very prominent position because we are leading research into the benefits of an IB program. We are leading research into what students do after they leave university. And I would say that what we've learned from this is that the IB student, the IB diploma student, importantly, students who enter universities with the IB diploma do better at university. The research suggests that. Recent research, which I'll show you in a minute, suggests that university students with the IB diploma do better at universities than A-level students, because I think of some of the preparation I've described before and some of those characteristics and qualities as well. The next slides are just a series of examples of the kind of media coverage that the IB is getting, or the International Baccalaureate is getting, in the UK. So there's a series of slides, if you could just go through those. Thanks. Okay. Can you stop on that one, please? I think this is an important one to draw your attention to. In May 2011, May of this year, the Higher Education Statistics Agency in the United Kingdom said the following. In a report and some research that they conducted into the IB student, the report said this. The report, I quote, provides an overview of IB students' characteristics and an analysis of enrollment patterns at the top schools and the chosen fields of study and achievement and non-continuation rates, as well as activities approximately 6 months after leaving. This is quite a challenge, isn't it? I'm wondering what's going to come this way. These results reinforce yet again that the IB Diploma program gives students the knowledge, skills and attitudes that enables them to excel at university. The program is well recognized by the world's leading universities and truly prepares students for the working world. That's the very, very powerful statement, I think. And I just want to reiterate something I said before. Approximately a fifth of IB students who enter university with a full-time first degree, first-time first degree, achieve first-class honours awards compared to 14.5% of first-degree qualifiers from A-level. So the point I'm making is that an IB Diploma student who is well prepared for university has the attributes and the skills to outscore their counterparts who take the A-level. But more importantly, I think, than simply doing well at university, is the skills and attitudes that the IB Diploma embeds, if you like, in the student, really prepares them very well for life beyond university, because it is a very well-rounded education where students are encouraged to be critical thinkers, where they are encouraged to take part in global affairs, and where they're encouraged to be independent learners. That's the IB Diploma. That's from 16 to 18, the last 2 years of school. But I would say exactly what I've said about the IB Diploma student applies to 3-year-olds in our schools. An IB PYP student at 3 and 4 years old is encouraged to think for themselves, to be independent, and to have a global awareness or social conscience. You may think that at 4 years old that's impossible. I can guarantee you it's highly possible. If the school culture is such, you can get incredible things from a 4-year-old in the PYP program. And some of our most committed and some of our most independent thinkers in our school are our very, very young kids. Now you might say, what does that tell us about your 18-year-olds if your 4-year-olds are outthinking them? It's not meant to sound like that at all, but it really reinforces the idea that an IB program makes for a very, very different type of student. An off-the-record comment, and this is very, very off the record, and I have someone from my school sitting in the back there. We concluded we are a member of ISI, the Independent Schools Inspectorate. Those of you who are not familiar with ISI would be familiar with Ofsted if you're involved in education. And we were inspected this week. In fact, the inspection finished yesterday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which doesn't explain why I haven't shaved, but they did finish at 4 o'clock. And off the record, what I can also tell you is that one of the things that was very impressive to the inspectors was the fact that the IB student that they were observing in our schools really, really did reinforce all the things I've told you before. Kids are thinking for themselves, are challenged academically, are thinking, do want to be involved in the world around them, have a very, very good understanding of their place in the world and the importance of altruism and commitment to social projects and social improvement. Thank you. I'm very happy to take questions if you have any.
Jeremy, thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. We open the questions to the floor, and we have a gentleman in the front.
Thank you. I was wondering, you showed that slide with all the newspaper prints about the increasing popularity of the International Baccalaureate. I mean, from what I remember, that sort of happened a couple of years ago, and it felt like there was almost a tipping point where most schools were going to take on the IBAC, and that doesn't seem to have happened. And why do you think that is?
I'll repeat the question. I'll repeat the question. The question was that the media clips that I showed you suggested that a couple of years ago in particular, the IB was very much the flavour of the month. And I think under Tony Blair's government, the idea was that there would be an international baccalaureate school in every county and almost in every street. I think one of the reasons that may not have happened is to implement change and to implement a new program such as the IB. It takes a lot of time. It takes money as well. And I think there's always a reluctance in schools who've been offering the A-levels for forever. It represents quite a shift for them, and I think they see it in some ways as a somewhat dangerous prospect when they don't really understand the IB. But a lot of schools have gone down the path of the International Baccalaureate, and increasingly, and it's in state schools and independent schools. But I think change from A-level to IB for some schools is quite radical.
Indeed. Thank you. A question from the...
Hi, thanks for sharing great. Thanks for sharing great presentation with us. I've seen at one of your first slides, you shared with us 3 groups or 3 levels of education for kids. And obviously you shared with us differences as well versus the standard system. Could you help us understand better what are then the criteria for entrance into the primary level and how they are different from the standard system in the UK, if obviously there are differences at the end of educational level, and how shall we prepare kids then to enter the system longer term? Thank you.
That's a good question. I hope I've got it right. The question was, we talked about the primary years program, which is a program for the 3 to 11-year-old students. And how does that program differ from what's offered in the state school here? I don't profess to be an expert on what's offered in the state school here. I think I'd be better talking about the primary years program within the IB. And I think what the IB program does for those very young children is it really prepares them to be, as I said, independent thinkers, to work collaboratively. But there's still an emphasis, and I think sometimes people worry that if you choose a system which isn't state mandated or national curriculum, you may worry about rigor or benchmarks or standards. But we have found that students who do the PYP program still excel in the 3 R's, if you like. So if you do then move from a PYP school and you choose to transition back into a state system, to a national system, there really shouldn't be any problem. But you may find that the PYP student will be restless at first if they're taught in a way that doesn't encourage them to think for themselves or to be inquirers. Because a fundamental part of the IB program is it's an inquiry-based program. So you start from the premise, or you start from what the child knows, really. What do you know? And from there I will build further knowledge. And that's quite different from many systems. But my experience is that students who transition from the PYP to an international, or to a national, or another school system do very, very well indeed. I don't know if that really answers your question, but let's pretend it does. Thanks.
More questions from the floor. This lady here.
Thank you. To join PIP program, it can be at any stage, or would you recommend to wait until 11 to entry to a middle age point?
That's a great question. Question was, does it matter at what point you enter the IB stage or IB program? The only point at which I would discourage a student starting would be like the equivalent here. If you came to a school in the 2-year A-level program and you join the school in the 2nd year of the program, your subjects may not align or match up. But other than that, we've seen, I mean, we're an international school. We have 620 kids or 612 students with 26% turnover annually, and students come and go all the time. So I don't really think it matters. I would not recommend that they join the program in the very, very last year, because then you're trying to do a 2-year program in 1 year, which is not possible, or it's hard sometimes to match or align your subjects. But other than that, I have never seen a student, well, the transition is relatively easy in a school that's well prepared to accept students. So I don't think it matters.
Yes, lady at the back.
I was just wondering where you stand on the argument that the IB forces kids to continue with subjects that they may be fairly weak at, and they would be better off doing A-levels, for instance, if, you know,
Right.
Maths is really not their thing and they want to do languages, but actually with the IB they have to do maths to a high level.
Right. Okay. The IB diploma program, just to remind you that there are these 6 groups, so they have to do 2 languages, they have to do maths, they have to do science, etc. The question was, how fair is that for students who are not necessarily competent across a broad range of subjects? Why not allow them to drop and just to simply focus on 3 subjects? There was an article in the Telegraph this week, actually, the Daily Telegraph, that talks about that very thing. And it does say that not every student will benefit from the breadth of the diploma. But I don't think I agree, because if you're not particularly strong in maths, there are 3 levels of mathematics within the IB diploma program. And for want of a better word, the lowest level of maths is a level that every student within a high school should be able to manage. And that's a very important point to note. But what it does continue, though, is that every student leaves at 18 with a degree of numeracy which they wouldn't necessarily have otherwise. Foreign language, likewise. You can be rather abysmal at foreign language, but you can start within the IB diploma program within the last 2 years. If you've had years of lack of success, for example, in French or German, you can start.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Independent School Show. In 5 minutes' time, 15:20.
I think they're trying to tell me something.
Neil Hamilton, who is the Director of Admissions at Marlborough College, will be talking in the breakout area that's on the mezzanine floor at the east end of the exhibition space on 24/7 education. Why boarding is a good choice. Do come up and sit on the sofas we have up there and join in a general discussion about why boarding might work for you, even if it's something that you've never thought about as a family before.
But it's not as important or interesting as the IB diploma. So you can choose maths, as I said. There are 3 levels, and you can choose it at a level that's very accessible to you. In terms of language, you can start a new language in the last 2 years of school from the very beginning. It's called a language or an ab initio language. So it's taught from scratch, from zero. So you could pick up Mandarin, you could pick up Spanish, etc. And I truly believe in the world that we live in today, to leave school or to continue languages is of huge value. And to stop learning a language at 16, in the world that we live in today, it really is a crime. So the IB recognizes that, and there are different levels. And for students who are well focused and organized, the IB diploma is the right program. If you want breadth, then you can manage it.
Gentleman in the suit.
Thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Looks like IB is harder than A levels. So is IB for every child, or is it only for hardworking children?
Great question. The comment was that it looks like it looks like the IB is harder than A levels. I'm not sure that it's harder. I think it's different. I think to get the highest scores in the IB diploma is without doubt harder than getting 3 A's at A level. I mean, there's proof in that, the way that universities recognize 3 A levels and the way they recognize the IB, the UCAS tariff, to get a high score in the IB diploma compared to a high score at A level, completely off the charts. To get the top score in IB diploma, you would be off the charts for universities completely. But the question is it for every child? I think it is, actually, and I think it should be, because if you're in a school where the program is taught well, and let's assume that it should be, then the benefit of it is not only do you get a well-rounded education in terms of academics, but you're also taken through a journey of community action and service, an extended research project, and you're taught to think for yourself. I have been in many, many international schools over the last 30 years where students who you would not necessarily identify as particularly academic, but have got through the program because they've been well guided and motivated. If you're not motivated and you're not well guided, you're not going to do well anyway. But you do not need to be especially academic. But you can leave with a good diploma, but the benefit of all the other attributes and the other aspects cannot be really measured in terms of comparison to the A levels, which don't have them. You can leave an A-level school with 3 poor A levels, 3 poor scores, and you haven't done much beyond that. With the IB, you get the breadth, and you've got the commitment to community service and to sport and to theory of knowledge. You're thinking for yourself. You're a global citizen. Those, I think, there are attributes that really stand the program far above most of its competitors, if not all of its competitors.
Thank you. Lady at the back.
Yes, hi. I would like to know who corrects the exams, because you're offering a global interpretation of education, and the ethos of exam are country-oriented.
Right.
So I'm just scared of little men in Geneva, correcting away, especially languages exams.
Right. I'm not sure about little men in Geneva. But what I will say, the IB, which is worldwide, the IB has examiners. I'm not going to say in 120 countries because I don't have evidence to support that. But there are IB examiners are trained all over the world. And particularly important, I think, is your concern about languages. The language examiners work in teams. In fact, all the examiners work in teams under a chief examiner. They set the exam, the criteria, they cross-reference, they moderate. But examiners, I know, for example, in our school, we could have our history exam, Our paper 1 could be sent to Australia, our paper 2 could go to France, and our paper 3 of the exam might go to India. So there are examiners all over the world that are trained to review the exam and to evaluate and moderate and grade according to set criteria. So it's very international in its examining as well.
Indeed. Another question from the floor. Yes, the gentleman there.
What would you say are the main criticisms of the IB from within those people that are inside the system? So not those that are in the A-level system, but those from within the IB system itself?
I think that's an excellent question. And actually, over the years, I've been very critical of parts of the IB diploma. That's a great question, because I think the question before that suggested that it might be too precious and it might not be accessible for all students. The IB have recognized that. And what they're doing now, they've just introduced a new program called the International Baccalaureate Careers-Related Certificate, which might answer your question a little bit as well. Which is going to have there's going to be a program of study for students who want something more vocational. So you would have the opportunity to mix something on the vocational side, but you would have to continue with language, you'd have to continue with maths, and you'd have to do that core of community and action and service. So for those people who think that it's too purist and too academic, I think it addresses that. I think the other criticism that I've leveled at the IB over the years is something, the extended essay, which is a research project, can be somewhat dull if you focus on it for 8 or 10 months, which often students do. You know, you start the program with great enthusiasm, but 10 months later, you can't wait to see the back of it. But they've just introduced an alternative, or they are talking about an alternative to the extended essay, which is an interdisciplinary essay, which you can pick up on subjects that interest you in an interdisciplinary way. So I think the IB is very responsive to the criticism that it gets. So I think those are the main ones. I also think that as an organization, and I think any large exam organization can run the risk of becoming overly bureaucratic and not responding quickly enough to its clients, if you like. But the IB is, as an organization, I think is very concerned about that and has annual conferences for teachers, monthly training workshops for teachers, annual workshops for heads of schools. So I think it really wants to listen to what the people on the ground are saying about the program. I'm not sure that's true of all exam systems.
Thank you. Any other questions? Can I just, on sort of taking up your point, sometimes medical schools say they prefer A-levels because it goes in greater depth rather than the IB.
Yep.
And occasionally people have to do an A-level in chemistry and so on.
Yeah. The concern was about medical schools, whether or not the IB diploma program provides the right foundation for medical schools. I do know that you can, within the IB, you can have special dispensation to take an additional science, for example, or additional level of maths in order to qualify for universities that require an additional science or an additional level of maths. So I think it caters to that pretty well now. It didn't used to do that, but it's flexible enough now for you to add a subject or add an additional science, even though that wasn't mentioned in the framework. If they know that you want to apply to medical school, they will make adaptations accordingly.
That's excellent to hear. Thank you. Any further questions? Well, Jeremy, thank you very much for being so generous with your time.
Pleasure.
And I know we all enjoyed hearing your answers.
Particularly at the back, I think they were fascinated.
Indeed. You did well. And thank you for all your questions too.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good afternoon.